Um, my name is Sydney Kochan. I'm the Government Relations and Special Projects Coordinator at Jubilee campaign. We've been working with Semi-People Free as well as Joel Vorduin to work on the No Penalty for Apostasy initiative. I'm just going to give a brief overview. I know we've been talking about apostasy and blasphemy the entire morning, but just a brief introduction. The most recent statistics provided by Pew Research report that no fewer than 79 countries and territories across the world have legislation and or policies enacted which criminalize blasphemy. This amounts to 40% of the world's population who are currently living in nations where the mere expression of dissenting religious views could mean unjust pretrial detention, prolonged terms of imprisonment, physical and or psychological torture, denial of legal counsel and medical care, and incommunicado detention and disappearance. 22 countries, on the other hand, have enacted similar legal prescriptions on apostasy or the act of renouncing one's faith or converting to a new faith. Reprehensibly, all 5 global regions, the Asia-Pacific, Europe, Sub-Saharan Africa, Middle East and North Africa, and the Americas are affected by such laws, criminalizing the inalienable right to freely choose one's belief, express their belief, and share their belief. We have seen some progress in recent years. In July 2020, the Sudanese
my camera, where is my, yes, here it is.
Ratified the miscellaneous
How long I have
Act,
to speak?
Which decriminalized apostasy, but we've also seen some backsliding in our progress to eliminate apostasy and blasphemy laws overall. As recently as February 2021, the Iranian President Hussain Rouhani approved of amendments to the nation's penal code, which would impose prison terms ranging from 2 months to 5 years for, quote, insulting Islam. I believe the most recent blasphemy case that has been truly horrific was the stoning to death of the Nigerian Christian student Deborah Yakubu Samuel in Sokoto State for alleged blasphemy. So we have a few different speakers today to share their own experience, either advocating for the elimination of apostasy or blasphemy laws, or their experience or other experiences of people who they represent. First, we have Mr. Youssef Ourahmane, who is a native Algerian and the vice president of the Association of Protestant Churches in Algeria. He originally founded the House of Church 24 years ago in 1997, but authorities arbitrarily closed it down in 2017 for allegedly illegally printing gospels and publications intended for evangelism. He will be joining us over Zoom, so I think we're going to turn over to him now.
Hello. Hi, do you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, anyhow, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to be able to share with you of what has been taking place here in Algeria. Unfortunately, the last, I think, 3-4 years almost since 2018, we have had very severe persecution and actually, and also closing down many churches. At the moment, we have, I think it's about 18 churches has been closed down by the authorities, and about 3 or 4 house churches has been ordered to stop their activities. Well, the reason why, because simply they are telling us that our license that is not valid anymore. It's not valid to be able to use it to continue our activities, and the license has been given to us back in 1974. But at the time, they were only foreigners, foreign churches. But now, of course, since 2011, when the church has become almost 100% Algerian, and all the EPA, the Algerian Protestant Church Association board members, are all Algerians. So for the Algerian government, it has been very difficult for them to understand, and of course, is a big shame to have so many Muslim converts. I'm talking about, about tens of thousands of Muslims have come to faith, well established in churches, and somehow it has been very hard for them to accept that. So we have had a lot of persecution, since I said 2018, since January. And of course, a lot of harassment, a lot of court cases. At the moment, as you know, we have a brother who is serving 5 years in prison, Brother Hamid. And of course, we have a lot of suspended court cases, prison sentences. So it has not been easy. And actually, because as I said, the Algerian church is not like the church in Egypt or Lebanon or Jordan. The church here is 100% Muslim converts. So we have about 47 churches that are members of the EPA, and many other churches actually they didn't want to join us. But out of this 47 churches, is maybe only 20-22% of the churches that are functioning now, and many of them they have been harassed, and also others they have been visited by the authorities, and you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. So we are struggling, and it has not been easy for a lot of the believers here, without having a church service, without having some fellowship, pastoral care, and good teaching. So it has not been easy for many believers here. So we are determined to continue and to persevere. We will never give up. We will continue to get our freedom right, and also we continue, of course, to share the good news with the people here. But as I said, it has not been easy recently. So one of our main struggle now is to get the license renewed. This is our main need, our main urgent need at the moment. Unfortunately, all the documents, the correspondence we have sent to the Minister of Interior, they have never recognized it. So you can really, this is our main need now. But also, I am also in touch with the Bible Society here in Algeria, in Algiers. So they have been having very tough time now to be able to clear some of the Bibles from the port, from the customs. And in fact, they told me, one of the head of the customs, he said to one of the brothers who was in charge of the Bible Society, he said to him, it's a sin for us to allow you to import Bible to this country. So, and actually recently they told them you have to renew all your license as well. So it is struggling with the license of the EPA, struggling to import Bibles and Christian literature into Algeria, but also we have been also struggling a lot to get permit to build churches, which actually it has not been granted at all. We tried once, we bought a land in the name of the church, tried to get the building permission, but it has not been granted for about now 5 or 6 years. Normally it takes about 2 to 3 months. So in one way, they want us to have churches which are, building that has meant to be a church, but on the other hand, they don't give us permission to build churches. So you can see the dilemma that we are on. And actually, you can be easily accused now of what we call shaking the faith of the Muslim, according to the ordinances of March 2006. And my wife and I, with another brother, we have been arrested, spent about 6 hours at the police station, a lot of interrogations, simply because we have given a gospel to one of the people where we were. And then he will report us to the police, so we had a very difficult time there. But that's the reason here. They don't want us to live our Christian faith, they don't want us to meet, they don't want us even to share our faith with others. So this is the situation where we are at the moment. But you can really continue to advocate for us and advocate for the church in Algeria. And I really believe that one day, of course, the freedom will be granted. We don't know when, but we will continue to persevere by God's grace and continue to press on till one day we will get our license granted and our freedom of worship here. So, and in spite of all this, in spite of all the harassment, in spite of the persecution, in spite of the church closure, still many people coming to faith in this country, especially among the Kabyle, the Berber people. Still a lot of interest in the gospel. A lot of people want to know more about the gospel, and actually we do broadcast a lot of stories and testimonies and programs on the social media, and we have seen a huge interest. And actually the Algerian government, they know that our presence here, our activities, is a danger for the unity of the country, for the culture, for many things as well. But anyhow, we believe that God is in the throne and God is sovereign and he has a final word. So I would like to say a really big thank you for your effort. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your prayer. And thank you for advocacy, which is greatly appreciated here by all the believers, especially by the board of the APA. So thank you very much for having me to share with you this time. And we are in Algeria, and we continue to live here and persevere to be able to live a life that really glorifies God and be a salt and the light in the society here, which is very much needed to be here at the moment. Thank you, and God bless you.
Youssef's daughter Sarah was actually here earlier attending our earlier sessions, but she did have to leave a bit early for a special meeting that she was going to attend. Our next speaker is also joining us over Zoom virtually. She spoke earlier this morning, but I think she's going to share a little bit more about her story. Mariam Ibraheem is a well-known Sudanese religious freedom activist born to a Muslim father and an Ethiopian Orthodox mother. Ms. Ibraheem was charged with apostasy in 2013 and sentenced to death the following year. Maybe she can share a little bit about the time that she spent in prison, which was just horrific. And yeah, we'll turn it over now to Ms. Ibraheem if she's on Zoom or Skype. An organization working to highlight the plight and persecution of Christians in northern and central Nigeria. Pastor Fred, we'll turn over to you now.
Good afternoon, everybody. I used to work with Christian Concern, but not anymore. I still freelance, so on and off I get to work with Christian Concern. I work with Christian Concern for over 6 years, so I just wanted to give that caveat. I'm a filmmaker, and I stumbled into filmmaking because of an attack that happened to us in Jos. I've been living in Jos, Plateau State of Nigeria since 1985, and on one of those days that we never expected it, we just heard Allahu Akbar, and the next thing is bullets flying everywhere. We thought it was a one-off, and from that moment, the attacks have not ceased. On one of the occasions when they came to attack, the mosque next door was announcing, kill the men, spare the children, spare the women. After 2 days of attack, they said, kill all of them. They are all infidels. It was like a story. It was not real. It can't be happening. It is not true. And that is the shock that many people still experience when it happens, until it happens directly to them. Not too long ago, I was invited by Scotland Yard as a person who is a stakeholder, because I happen to have been born in the UK, so I'm British, but I've lived in Nigeria since 1985. And they said to me, Scotland Yard, give us an idea of how bad it is. Because I drove past Scotland Yard this morning as I was driving here. And I said, are you sure you want to see exactly how it is? For the last 15 years, I've gathered pictures and videos and testimonies across the Middle Belt and north of Nigeria of what has been happening. And they gave me like 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. Now, from experience, I've learned not to show those videos everywhere, but because these are officials and they were concerned about the security. I wanted them to see the real thing. After 3 minutes of the video, they pleaded with me to stop the video. It was too graphic. The reality of what is happening is too graphic to put in public light. But we must, one way or another, let people have an idea that this is what we are facing on a weekly basis, sometimes on a daily basis for some communities. A few days ago, I was in a region in Plateau State called Bassa local government. And I traveled for an hour, 30 minutes. I came across only 2 or 3 cars. The roads are so dangerous that people are scared to travel in the day. You won't even think about traveling in the night. I can show you graphic pictures and I can show you statistics, but I just wanted you to have an idea of the humanity and what we go through just because we are not of the same faith. But because of my passion to tell stories, I've also felt that it would be good to give people an idea of what is happening. So I've put a video together that is just a few minutes to capture some of the things that we've been facing. Because on one of the occasions, I picked up a gun to fight. But I found out that there's something more powerful than a gun to shoot and to fight. I found out that the camera was not destructive, but was powerful in telling stories. And powerful stories can change people's mindsets. And so if you look behind you, you see there hashtag DGBPUC. It means drop the gun and pick up a camera. So that is what I did. As a pastor, I stood with a gun guarding the church. But I found out that something more powerful than using a gun is taking a camera and telling stories. And simply telling factual stories. So I'm going to show us a few videos and then I'll leave it open for us to just ask practical questions. Is that okay? Let's run the first video.
The 12-year-old girl in London who taped up her mouth to raise support for victims of terror and violence in Nigeria. 10,000 women who marched crying out for peace, led by visionary women that rose above religious barriers. Teachers going beyond racial, tribal and religious divides to empower communities and restore broken lives. Dancers, actors, lawyers and many more responding in creative and wholesome defiance all chose to love back. A filmmaker determined to make a difference chose to drop the gun and pick up a camera. This is their story.
They killed almost everyone.
Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
My father and my mother. My brothers were slaughtered like animals. They dragged my sisters into the night. They destroyed everything and burnt down our houses. And no one even helped us. Where do we go? Who do we turn to? Who will hear our cry?
is our reality. This is what is happening now. In southern Kaduna, Benue, Taraba, in a lot of the parts where you have states.
I want to be a voice for the voiceless. I want to help the victims of terror, the orphans and children that have no one to speak for them. I want to be their voice. Please help us help them.
And that's it. It's about 3 or 4 minutes I've tried to squeeze in, but I felt it's important to paint a picture because it looks like drama, but it is the reality. What can we do? How do we respond? Violence is not the solution, so it's to challenge the government and friends. Now that picture, the last scene there of a girl taping her mouth, happened here in East London. One of the days I came back from Nigeria to tell the story, a 12-year-old girl saw some of the photos of the killings. She was so touched by it, so she taped her mouth. And for 24 hours, she would not speak. She would not eat. And she went to bed. And her parents were concerned. Why are you not speaking? She's Caucasian. I came as an African telling my story. And she didn't speak for 24 hours and would not eat for 24 hours. This was on a Saturday. And on a Sunday, she went to church, and the 12-year-old girl had a crowd around her. Why do you have a tape on your mouth? And then she removed the tape. And she said, I want to be a voice for the voiceless. I want to help the victims of terror. When I heard that, I just broke down in tears because I was complaining to her father that people in the UK are not responding to our plight. And then he told me what his 12-year-old daughter did. That girl has become my greatest inspiration. For if a 12-year-old girl can tape her mouth and then be a voice for the voiceless, I have no excuse. So she raised thousands of pounds and flew to Jos in Plateau State with her father and began to help the victims. One of the things I believe we can do is to continue to be a voice for the voiceless. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pastor Williams, and I especially agree with your entire initiative. Drop the guns, pick up the camera. As many of you guys know, on Pentecost Sunday, I believe it was Ondo in Nigeria, or in southern Nigeria, there was recently a massacre inside of a church. Ondo. And though we read about it, there was one video that was circulated, I believe, by International Christian Concern that showed the results of the massacre, and I think it got so much coverage, and I think that's really what we need to be doing, is showing the actual reality, because as many people do, they write about it, but it really hits a nerve when you're able to see the actual results of these massacres. It's terrible. I think we're going to try to reach Mariam again. She called back during the last speaker, but we're going to see if she will answer the Skype call now, and we'll turn over to her. She won't be showing her face, it'll be just voice, but she will be joining us.
Hello?
Welcome, Mariam. Go ahead and share your story.
Hello?
Yes, Mariam, we can hear you. You can go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I wouldn't be able to join with the video just for some reason. Yeah.
It's okay. We can hear you, so if you'd like to go ahead and speak.
Oh, all right. Okay. My name is Mariam Ibraheem. I'm religious persecution survivor, actually for apostasy from Sudan. The background of my case, I was born from Muslim father and Christian mother, but by the law I was considered Muslim because children who were born for a non-Muslim mother and Muslim father must follow their father's religion. So I'm married to Christian man. I faced 2 different charges, adultery and apostasy. So apostasy for practicing Christian faith instead of Islam. So for many religious minority groups, that apostasy is not just about conversion. Like in case of interfaith marriage between non-Muslim and Muslim. So I was sent to jail along with my 9 months old Tom, and I'm forced to give birth to my daughter in prison. So my story kind of familiar for many of you, and for those who are not, that's a part of this why I'm here today, to advocate and raise awareness for others who are facing similar charges and many cases worse, because these people are already being killed. And a lot of times the discussion when it came to apostasy and blasphemy law, we hear the other side on from our Muslim friends that are denying the fact that it's not religiously motivated and there's no root for apostasy in Islam, which is not true, because mostly in Islamic country that where Islamic Sharia law is taking place, or there's the court actually have more the religious groups that have more influences on the court system and in the legal system in country like Sudan and other Islamic countries. So, for example, like in my case, I remember that these imams was always are there during the trial, visiting me in prison, and yet the court have also there's what you call fatwa. Many cases that is have to happen to be at the court. The court actually asks certain groups of Muslim scholars, like Islamic Fiqh Academy, they release a fatwa on what the court should do on this case. So back to this, actually, because country like Sudan and Egypt and one of those countries that are in the list of the 12 countries, they are a member at the United Nations. They signed the Declaration of Human Rights Law, and then they say they have in their constitution saying that everybody is free to worship or believe their faith that they choose to. But yet when it came to court, when it came to legal system in the first trial, there's 100% you end up with death penalty. So because the main source for the court is not just the constitution of the country, it's not human rights law, but it's the influences of the religious group and like Islamic Fiqh Academy, because they dig deep into how should they treat this person who dishonor Islam. They take it so personally. It's not like someone who just choose to practice this faith or to live Islam, or born into family between Muslim and Christian family, but you choose a different side. So they that's the problem here, and I think it's an evil act, because when people are not free, are not safe to practice their faith or to express their opinion, because a blasphemy accusation is always happen when people have discussion in religious contents, like what's happened to Deborah Samuel. And it's really very dangerous, and it's actually alarming for us and for people who are, in the field of advocacy, because when it's happened, this crime like this committed in a classroom, like where is a safe place for people to express their opinion or to discuss their beliefs or share their thoughts freely? Where is can be safe for people to do that if the classroom is not a safe place, if the student, because again I will go back to not just the education system, also not just the legal system, the education system. I remember when I'm at school, we sit shoulder by shoulder, Muslim and Christian student, and you be forced to repeat the contents that how you should treat the emperor and how bad they are, and they will go to hell if they did not repent and accept Islam. So this is I mean, really deep-rooted issues on our communities and the societies and the education system, the legal system. And actually, we have so much we can do to bring awareness and to bring changes. I'm glad we are we sometimes we face a lot of challenges speaking about Islamic Sharia law and apostasy laws, because we face backlashes, like we've been accused of being hateful or person spreading misinformation, because the other side saying no, there's no apostasy in Islam. So what I will say that we should be allowed to speak and share, like I hear a lot of stories from other speakers, survivor of apostasy and blasphemy law, empowering the survivor and giving them a voice to speak and share their story. That will help raise awareness, because many of us are not given the same chance. Many didn't survive. Other survivor, we really have moral responsibility to speak up and share our stories, because as many are not here today. Many lost their life and still in prison, facing trial. So the other thing, also one of the things that might have impact in bringing change, is that we, as a in Western countries, that where there's a law protect people's right and freedom, and yet there's a diplomatic engagement between the Western country and this other countries. So I would say that as a civil society, we're also responsible to teach our leaders and legislative about the reality and what we provide recommendation. One of the things that I remember we did when the after al-Bashir regime is over, when the former Prime Minister of Sudan came and visited the United States, we sent a letter of recommendation about that's what it's supposed to be changed in order for us to achieve religious freedom and democracy in Sudan. So one of the recommendations is abolishing apostasy law and abolishing public law order. And yet we need not just to abolish actual apostasy law, Sharia law at all. So, and actually it worked, and we received a response from our contact with Youssef, saying that this is your recommendation was the first, talking point in our meeting with the Prime Minister of Sudan. So that's what I would say. I really appreciate, as I said, my People Free effort and Jubilee campaign. I'm grateful really to work with them for many times, and this is very special topic, and very for me personally is very personal, because now we have another case in Sudan. It's not actually adultery, but it's related to conversion. How, like, this is another way, people who convert from Islam to Christianity are being treated. You face different trials, false accusation, and different trials also. Still, there's so much need to be done and change to happen. So that's my statement for today, and I hope you have a great time.
Thank you, Mariam, for taking the time out of your day to join us twice. That means a lot to us. Our final speaker is Joseph Janssen. He joined one of our earlier panels, but he's able to speak again. Sorry, I'm just finding his biography. Mr. Janssen is the founder of Voice for Justice, a Christian organization with a mission to advocate for religious freedom in Pakistan. I'll turn the floor to you.
Thank you so much, Sydney. Good afternoon to everybody. My name is Joseph Janssen, founder and chairman of Voice for Justice. I feel immense pleasure today to speak about blasphemy and apostasy laws in Pakistan. And I'm so thankful to Kamal Fahim for organizing such a great event and to let us to speak about these laws and victims. And especially today, right now, I would like to talk about blasphemy laws in Pakistan, particularly Pakistan in section 295B, which is a desecration of the Holy Quran, and 295C is saying, defaming, saying something negative against Prophet Muhammad, which is punished with the death sentence in Pakistan. So we have witnessed from the last years that thousands of persons has been jailed, has been killed with the charge of blasphemy laws in Pakistan, including Salman Taseer, someone who just tried to help Asia Bibi's case, that she is innocent. He tried to support her for her freedom. His own security guard bulleted him with 36, shot him with 36 bullets, and after that minority, our Minister Shabazz, but he was also attacked and he was shot dead on the way, speaking just raising voice for Asia Bibi's case. The same way we have witnessed in Pakistan that whoever is accused for blasphemy charges, blasphemy cases, the court trial is most of the time is unfair, is not justified according to the fair trial, because the witnesses face death threats from the mob and around the people who are searching, and also the serious threats to the lawyers. We see the lawyers, whoever is going to the court to defend blasphemy victim, they faces many threats. That's why in the case of Shagufta Kausar and Shafkat Emmanuel, they were accused in 2013, and almost it took 8 years to get them released. And with the help of the European Union, the resolution which was passed in 2021, specifically, particularly asking the freedom of Shagufta Kausar and Shafkat Emmanuel. And we are so thankful to Pakistani government who after that worked very hard, and at least they released the couple. But we urge Pakistani government to continue to release other blasphemy victims according to the international convention and according to the resolution. And also Pakistan is a signatory of international convention, and also Pakistan having GSP plus free status for protecting minority rights in Pakistan. Same way in 2021 we have seen the violation, mob violence, it day by day, years by years increased. We have seen in 2021 Priyantha Kumar, who was a Sri Lankan manager working in the factory as a manager, on a small accusation, false accusation that he desecrated of the holy pages of Quran or said something. The whole factory employees, his own worker, came to kill him. They attacked him. They burned him alive outside the factory in 2021. So in 21st century, we see how the extremism, how the street mob violence is increasing in Pakistan. It is also in the Mushtaq, another mentally ill person 2021, Mushtaq Ahmed, he was hanged with the tree outside. Just he said something, he was mentally ill. People don't investigate. There is a lack of investigation. The citizen of Pakistan, they take laws in their own hand. That means there is no justification, there is no legal evidence. So they are their own lawyers, they judge themselves, they are everything. The mob violences, they do everything. They are the police, they are the lawyers, they are the judges, and they hanged and burned people alive on the street. That's what happening in Pakistan right now. So we have seen many cases right now. The cases I have already in the previous sections spoken about Shagufta Kiran's case, she just forwarded a message in the other group, and that was considered as blasphemous message, and she has been detained from last 2021 July, and she has 4 minor children. They are hiding. They had to leave their house where they were living from last 16 years. When she was accused, their children, their family could not take a single thing from their house. They had to flee. And imagine the area, the street people took all their stuff, all the souvenirs of the children from the school. We have seen them crying for their mothers, crying for the stuff that the precious stuff that they had in their house, how they are hiding. Their life has been destroyed. They are in trauma from last year, hiding, running from one place to another place. So this is the story of Shagufta Kiran. We have seen, I have in this previous section also spoken about Rahmat Masih. He was working in a publishing factory for 20 years, and this factory published and covered the Holy Quran. Somehow they found some pages of the Quran outside the factory, and they accused innocent person who belongs to minority, who belongs to Christian minority. So they said, it is better for the company, it is better for the factory to accuse Christian. He did it. He threw these Quran pages throughout the street, and he since now December 2021, he's in the jail, he's in the prison, he has children, he has wife who are hiding. Multiple cases has been registered who are falsely, people are accused. So on this platform, I would like to say to the PHOB, to the all human rights activists, and taking the opportunity for international freedom, religious on this PHOB, to speak, to raise a voice, to put more, to dialogue with Pakistani government, to amend, to repeal these blasphemy laws, to reform these blasphemy laws, to give protection to blasphemy victims and their families, and those especially who are on bail. They had to in height, in Pakistan. Pakistani government, we urge them to give them protection after their bail, and also with the strong law, whoever who is accusing falsely to someone, I am, for example, accused, these people are accused, then they have to spend years and years and suffer. But whoever accused falsely, there is no punishment for them. Government should punish those who falsely accused, so that there is less than there is a decrease of for unnecessary false accusation. So these were my recommendation. I will shortly say something about the apostasy. Now, apostasy is in Pakistan someone who leaves Islam and convert to any other religion. That person is an apostate. And apostasy is in officially Pakistan is not criminalized. There is not officially it's officially but it is not officially criminalized. But in practice, in Pakistan it is impossible for Muslim to convert to Islam, because whoever convert to Christianity, sorry, whoever convert to Christianity from Islam, they consider it as an insult of religion. They consider as an insult of Prophet Muhammad, and that's why they are blasphemer. And then blasphemy, you know, in Pakistan again is punished with death, and anybody can, you know, also the mindset, the mindset in Pakistan is that whoever, you know, killed a blasphemer will directly go to the paradise. I request to scholar to clear that mindset of the people. It's not every Muslim, but most of them consider, you know, to go to the paradise. I don't know how, but Pakistan needs to work on it, especially their clergies, to make the mind clear of every Muslim or normal citizens. I have shared already the story. I have of Nora, you know, who's converted from Islam to Christianity a few years ago. She doesn't has her birth certificate. She doesn't has any identity card with her, but she is married with a Christian man, and she has now, she married in the church, and she had now 2 children. When she went to the office for her birth certificate and for B form for the children, it was written on the official building of the government called NADRA. NADRA is a national database authority which issues the identity card of every citizen and the birth certificate of every citizen. This is official, this is the state, this is the government office. And on that board was written, whoever convert from Islam to any other religion is prohibited. It is not possible. And also, whoever convert from any other religion to Islam is possible, which means state is itself promoting to convert people to Islam from other religions. State is helping, police, all the departments are helping minorities to convert to Islam, and that's not fair. That's discrimination towards other religion and other minorities. I'm just going to, and I'm in the last, that I just say there should be a freedom for everyone to choose their religion, to choose any faith. That's why I urge Pakistani government to reform their policy, to reform the policy of NADRA office. According to the NADRA office policy from 2018, what I have already mentioned, that it is prohibited from any other religion to convert to Islam. Pakistan must actively reform this policy and make laws in Pakistan for every Muslim, every citizen to choose any religion so that people can follow and have freedom of religion. Thank you so much. Right now in Pakistan, there is absolutely no religious freedom. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joseph. And I'm really glad that you tied in the legal matters as well as the mob violence. Pakistan is one of the countries where they do actually hand out the death sentence for blasphemy, although it's rarely carried out. But we do get the argument when we try to advocate for the elimination of blasphemy and apostasy laws in other countries. We get asked, well, if this country has a moratorium on the death penalty, or if they haven't handed out the death penalty in 10 or 20 or 30 years, why does it matter to you that you want to get it off of the books? And the reason is because, like in Pakistan, simply having a legal provision criminalizing apostasy and blasphemy is enough for criminal actors to take matters into their own hands. They think they're vigilantes. They go out there and they will kill anyone who disagrees with their opinion, and they think that they are carrying out an act of justice. So even in the countries where the death sentence is not actually applied or isn't actually executed, even after being handed out to someone, it is so dangerous for them because of the mob violence that is emboldened by the legislation itself. I think now we will open for a question and answer. I'm not sure how much time we have before the next panel, so maybe just like a couple questions if anyone has anything. Yes. Do we have a microphone for him? This one.
Thank you so much both for your interventions. I just had a question about precisely the mob violence and the law. I was told that often when someone is accused of blasphemy, the judge under provision 295C of the Pakistani code has either the choice of acquitting the person or condemning this person to death. And then the person stays in prison for years. And sometimes even if the judge acquits the person, if that person leaves the prison, that person is killed by the mob or faces death threats. Could you elaborate, confirm this or elaborate a bit if you have examples of innocent people being held in prison, even the judge knows that this person is falsely accused of blasphemy, and that person is released and is actually killed by the mob?
From my understanding, in Pakistan, normally the lower court don't have the same security system as the High Court and Supreme Court. So when the victims and trial come to the lower court, there is a lot of mob extremists who put pressure to the judges and on the lawyers, and also threat for the people who are trying to help them. So that's why if, for example, the person is accused for charged with sentence for jail something, then is the judge's pressure is already released. So then they are free. It will go to the bail on High Court, and then High Court, can bear the pressure because there is more security. And if lower court say fair trial, and then say, okay, now this person is innocent, it is as we have seen in many cases, then the mob, the extremist people, they attack. They immediately, we have seen in Peshawar, the person was just came to the court hearing and he shot dead in the courtyard. In the court. And in the previous section also my colleague said that the two Christian guys were, got set innocent by the lower court, and they were shot on the way to death. So this is the mob. While it is state's responsibility to protect those citizens, but in practice that actually don't happen. If I give the answer, there is a threat for even for those who are acquitted, they get free from the jail, but their lives, death sentence threat stays. So everybody still want to kill them, want to, hang them. And also it's a symbol in Islam, cutting their they demand to cut their head, and, they demand their death, and to fulfill their own wish. I don't know if how they have learned, but it is what they demand publicly on the street. Did I give the answer to your question? Yeah.
Yes.
The mob action in Nigeria is fast, almost immediate. You don't even get to court. A few people just get up and accuse you, and that's it. They stone, they behead. I was trying to list here the many people that have been killed over the years. There are too many. They don't even get to court. They just say, oh, you were preaching against the prophet, and they get stoned. Just, oh, you abused our prophet, or you tore a page out of, and it can even be a false accusation. They don't even get arrested. They don't get the privilege to get to, like Deborah that was killed just about a month ago. She didn't get fair justice. She was just killed. And the interesting thing is, someone prominent like the presidential aspirant who actually condemned it, the moment he condemned it, the mob action against him, he withdrew his condemnation from Twitter immediately. And that is a presidential candidate. So the mob action is brutal and is immediate. It doesn't even get to court.
Thank you so much. I know that after Deborah's killing, there were 2 other cases that are currently being looked over. One is Naomi Goni. She actually condemned Deborah's killing on a Facebook post, and now people are actually after her to kill her. And she has been taken into police custody for protection. But of course, there have been instances, even the militants in Nigeria have very easy time overcoming the police protection care. So even though she is in protective custody, we're not sure whether it will be effective. And then going back to Pakistan, I think it was in July 2019 or 2020, there was a man on trial for blasphemy, and a teenager had actually snuck through 3 different barrier checkpoints and actually entered the courtroom, shot him 6 times, and killed him, even in the presence of police and court officials. So I wanted to sort of respond to that question as well. Do we have time for any more questions, Kamal, or should we? Yeah. Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Gertrude. I've lived in London for the last 16 years. I had the opportunity of living in Ilford, Goodmays, and near Stratford. I mean, being very familiar with those areas. Having lived in Woodford Green, which is kind of mainly Christian, and Ilford and the others are mainly Islamic areas, meaning there are many Muslims in those areas. What I observed is they have a period when they all fast and pray for the whole month, and then men go to the to the mosque at a certain time after breaking the fast, and there's a lot of teaching from perhaps the Old Testament and their Quran. And so after those 30 days of praying and fasting, I had the feeling that there was a lot of a kind of power within the very atmosphere. I felt it as a Christian, a certain power that that would have come from their prayer. It looks like when we talk about everything that we are talking about, like killing of Christians and so on, we are neglecting that side of the power, of a spiritual power. Some people who come from Nigeria will tell you that the survivors of some of the executions tell you that they are told your God is very weak, your God is not up to standard, and therefore there's nothing you can do about us. I'm trying not to ask a question, but I'm making a comment to say, unless we as Christians awaken to prayer and fasting as well, because that is how Jesus, led his ministry, we too should know the word, should pray and fast to acquire the anointing and the power. And I think that is the anointing and power which will break a lot of sinfulness and demonic influence from the other religion. After that is cleared from the atmosphere or from the area where you live, then when you intercede as Christian, when we intercede, our prayers will be effective, and we can, our governments will have enough strength to put up laws that are effective and can be listened to. But unless we really look at the spiritual side of our struggle and our problem, we will just be talking, and we think coming together, discussing it, it will have an effect, but unless we break the forces that be through prayer and fasting and knowing the word and interceding, and also, you know, the prayer of a righteous man has a lot of effect and power. Unless we bring ourselves to that level, because they too, they sacrifice, they pray, they fast to the God whom they know, and we don't
Thank
do
you so
the
much.
same.
I think we are running out of time. So your comments are that we should, with the action, we should also prayer. So that's the point. It says, thank you so much. We must take all the actions to protect them, and also prayers are also important. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight, with respect to my sister here, that not everybody in this room is a Christian. You know, they're respectful of Christianity, but we also have to respect them as well. And so without going into it, the theological concept, yes, it's good to pray, okay. The Christian doesn't necessarily react with violence, but faith, as the Lord said in the good book, without action is dead. So we need to also to action these things. And just to very quickly, if I may say, and maybe you can confirm this as well, Joseph, going back to what Christophe's original question was, that actually concerning the plight of accused Christians. I mean, was it Bishop Joseph of Peshawar that shot himself in the head in frustration many years ago in a courtroom because of the terrible plight of Christians and the injustice that Christians were suffering under blasphemy? And so there are many, many cases. There's been a couple that have been thrown in alive in a brick kiln, as you know, while they were alive. Can you imagine thrown in a brick kiln, 400-500 degrees, you know, just being sort of, sort of melted and burned to death, actually. So, again, to me, this is a failure of the Western governments from speaking out and actually voicing these things. But there are many, many instances where they have been killed. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the comments. I think now we'll close this meeting and then take a 15-minute break and then open for the next panel.
Can we come together again? I know you are tired, so let's just. Good evening again. Thank you for following us. Those who are in live streaming, we welcome you back. And those who are here in the hall, I know many of you are tired. Would you just stand up, please? Would you stand up? Everybody stand up. Just stretch your arm, you know, stretch your, let's come on, let's just come alive again, you know. It's the final hour, let's stretch up so we can really give our best for the final session here. Good, excellent. Thank you very, very much. I know we have heard a lot of. Please be seated. We have heard a lot of information. Sometimes it's too much to take it in, but it will be always online. You can always go back to it and always have a reflection time and pass it on, please, to anybody who you think that are interested. Right. Earlier I was reading to you Article 19. I want just to refresh our mind by Article, 18 first. And this time we will read Article 19. So to refresh our mind and to just, you know, tell what this article of human rights means. Article 19 says, everyone has a right to freedom of opinion and expression. So I can say whatever I like. You know, guys, you can't tell me no. The right includes freedom to hold opinion without interveners, and to seek, receive, and import information and ideas through any media. Sadly, in this day and age, we have people who have been restricted in the media, especially social media, to express their opinion. But this is part of the Human Rights Act, which we should all really support. I think, you know, as we say, 74 years ago, the world came together and they come up with these articles. And yet, after 74 years, we're still wrestling and struggling to fulfill this. But I'm glad we have this wonderful panel, and each one of them, they will bring their own input their personal story and also their expertise. We have Christophe. He's a lawyer, a legal expert with a master's degree in human rights law. Fantastic. And then we're going to see, you know, what does it mean really, those articles. I hope he will just maybe freshen, you know, give us some ideas or tips what those really means. And we have Harry as well. We have Nazir. Both will share their personal journey and what does it mean a day like that to them. And for us as well, it's lovely to have them. Just please give them a big, big welcome. Very, very welcome, guys. Come on. So we're going to give you 10 minutes each, please, one after another. And then I will probably, you know me, if you go farther than 10 minutes, I'll come and stop you. Thank you. Yes. Anybody? Yes, please. You can start, yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here. I'd like to thank obviously the panelists and the witnesses for their courage, frankly, because I'm glad today to present a new report, the persecution of ex-Muslim Christians in France and in Europe. And many of the witnesses that I have interviewed were afraid. They didn't show their faces. And it's really to be brave, to dare showing your face when you experience the kind of threats they do. I came with a video. I'll briefly introduce it. It's in French, but it's subtitled in English. It summarizes some testimonies that I collected. I collected many more, and with these I wrote this report that I'll try to present you briefly. And then again, I brought some reports so you can take them with you. Please do take one so that I don't have to bring it back to France. So I'll leave the floor to them.
Où c'est une petite chrétienne d'origine berbère qui s'est fait harponner donc par un islamiste dans un quartier, dans une banlieue parisienne française, et qui, elle, naïvement, n'a pas réalisé avec qui elle pactisait, avec qui elle se mariait, suite, je dirais, à une dispute entre eux. Donc il a massacré à coups de câble Ethernet. Elle est morte à 3h du matin de ces blessures-là.
Et j'étais converti grâce à un camarade de classe. On discutait religion. Et puis, je venais d'arriver en France. Je venais d'apprendre à lire et à écrire. Et puis, je lui ai dit, écoute, il y a un livre qui s'appelle la Bible. Il paraît que c'est un livre, c'est un best-seller. Qu'est-ce que c'est? Je lui ai juste dit, qu'est-ce que c'est que la Bible? Elle me dit que c'est la parole de Dieu. Je lui ai dit, c'est quoi la parole de Dieu? Parce que nous, on nous apprend l'islam, c'est une manière oralité, hein. On ne dit rien du tout sur les textes, on nous force à sa petite fille, on nous force juste à réciter des versets. Et donc, voilà, j'avais 14-15 ans, elle me met la Bible entre les mains, je la lis, et ben là, ça a été effectivement la révélation, la compréhension totale, et immédiatement, comme je suis hypersensible et très intuitive, j'ai tout de suite compris que j'étais en danger, que j'allais me mettre en danger, et voilà. Et pendant toutes mes 10 ans, jusqu'à mes 23 ans, j'ai vécu avec mes parents, j'ai tout fait en cachette.
Personnellement, je me suis converti parce que quelqu'un a osé m'offrir les évangiles dans la rue, donc c'était un protestant, et ça a été la révélation, parce que tout le monde m'avait dit du mal du christianisme, dans les médias, dans mon entourage musulman, enfin, il y avait un mépris terrible pour les chrétiens et les juifs.
Ah oui.
C'était automatique, quoi. Il fallait les mépriser, avoir de la haine contre eux. J'ai lu les paroles de Jésus et j'ai pleuré de joie. C'était une révélation, hein. Pour moi, on m'avait caché la beauté de Dieu, hein, en fait.
Et j'ai quitté l'islam par conviction, donc j'ai pas subi de persécution physique, mais plutôt une pression plutôt mentale et psychologique. Actuellement, j'ai un de mes frères qui est frériste qui ne me parle plus depuis ma conversion, tout simplement parce qu'il est dans un logiciel et un référentiel théologique donc qui lui interdit donc de dialoguer et de discuter avec moi. Donc on est, même si nous sommes en France, personnellement, on est ostracisé, on est mis de côté, on est banni, on est exclu.
Mon frère est devenu extrêmement violent contre moi, et mes tantes et mes oncles aussi se sont énervés. Bon, eux, ils voulaient plus me parler, mais c'est surtout mon frère, hein, qui s'en est pris à moi. Mépris, insultes, et puis ensuite, comme j'étais devenu chrétien et que bon, pour lui, je faisais plus partie de la famille, en fait.
J'ai vécu ma conversion dans la clandestinité la plus totale.
Ah oui, c'est ça.
Voilà. Et donc ensuite, moi, j'ai eu la chance de m'être marié avec un chrétien. J'ai été très bien accueilli dans l'église, dans la famille chrétienne de mon mari. Donc, moi, c'est juste des persécutions morales et des menaces verbales que j'ai eues. Donc, je me suis aussi caché pendant quelques années, pendant 3-4 ans, jusqu'au jour où je me suis dit, bon, c'est bon, maintenant tu es libre. tu vas à Paris, tu vas pas te cacher éternellement. Oui. Et j'ai vécu ma vie, et ensuite, de mon côté, ma famille a abandonné. Et alors, effectivement, abandonné, ils ont vraiment abandonné. Ils l'ont en chasse, ensuite, ils m'ont vraiment abandonné, parce que jusqu'à aujourd'hui, 25 ans, 28 ans plus tard, je n'ai aucun contact.
Ah
même
oui.
s'ils vivent en région parisienne.
Ah oui, ils ne veulent plus vous voir.
Ah non, du tout, du tout. Ni les frères et sœurs, ni les parents, ni les cousins. C'est vraiment, comme on dit, même c'est de l'eau qui a fait le pont. Chez les musulmans, voilà. Chez les musulmans, là, on ne fait pas le cercle.
Ce qu'il y a, c'est que quand on sort de la religion musulmane, ensuite, on est identifié comme un halki, comme un traître par tout le monde. Hein. On est l'ennemi. Et quand on se balade dans le quartier, ben voilà, on nous regarde avec mépris au minimum. Combien de fois j'ai eu des collègues qui, une fois qu'ils ont réalisé que j'étais converti, voilà, j'ai subi un certain harcèlement au travail. C'est pour ça que je suis toujours discret sur ma conversion. Je parle à personne de foi. Hein. Des fois, je rencontre des musulmans qui s'en fichent un peu, qui sont ouverts, mais c'est pas la majorité.
C'est en France que je me suis fait baptiser en 2015. Donc, et avec beaucoup de réticence, y compris dans l'église catholique. On m'a baptisé à huis clos, en cachette, sans me déclarer. Il n'y avait pas de public. La même chose pour la confirmation. Donc ça s'est fait en catimini, secrètement, de peur que d'autres musulmans, surtout à Marseille, dans la ville où je me suis fait baptiser, d'autres musulmans découvrent ma conversion et me dénoncent entre eux parce qu'il y a un effet de corps, de contrôle social intense dans cette ville.
Même si nous sommes en France, on sait qu'il y a des représailles de la part de la famille, de l'entourage, et même ça peut être violent de la part du quartier. Et il faut savoir que la plupart de ces personnes qui se convertissent, donc elles habitent des quartiers, donc on va dire à majorité musulmane, des quartiers paupérisés, fragilisés. Et aujourd'hui, dans certains quartiers, malheureusement, donc il y a les fréristes qui sévissent et qui font la loi dans le quartier. Donc on leur dit de pas trop témoigner, de pas le dire aux parents, à l'entourage, de peur qu'elles se fassent malmener. Donc je suis confronté à cela quasiment chaque mois. Malheureusement, j'ai eu des drames. J'ai eu des drames de la part d'un jeune, et là je peux le dire, au Mans, qui s'est converti. Et après sa conversion, donc il a subi, puisqu'il était salafiste, donc il a subi une certaine pression de la part de ses collègues salafistes. Donc il a quitté la France. Après, il est parti vivre. Il y a eu quelques concours de circonstances. Il est parti vivre, bien sûr, aux États-Unis. Et lorsque sa cousine s'est mariée, donc il est revenu dans le quartier. Donc les salafistes ont attendu qu'il sorte, je dirais, de la salle de mariage, puisqu'il s'est rendu dans le parking. Et là, ils l'ont attendu à coups de barre de fer et ils l'ont quasiment massacré, quoi. Donc, il est mort suite de ces blessures-là à l'hôpital 2 jours après. Donc, il est mort 2 jours après. Donc, ils ont voulu étouffer l'affaire. Donc, la famille, parce qu'il était chrétien. Donc, voilà. Donc, là, c'est important à préciser, puisque le jour où on se convertit, il y a une honte. La famille reçoit ça comme une honte. Et ils en ont tellement eu honte que la famille, même s'il est mort à l'hôpital à coups de barre par les salafistes, en fait, non, ils ont pas dénoncé les salafistes, et parce que pour eux, c'est une honte de renier l'islam, etc. Donc, il n'y a pas toujours ce type de massacre, parce que là, c'est quand même, on parle d'une sauvagerie, d'une barbarie, mais c'est souvent, on est plutôt dans un enfermement mental, on est ostracisé, mis de côté, exclu. Il y a une pression qui est mentale, qui est psychologique.
En plein été, j'avais une croix, et dans le métro, j'ai été agressé verbalement par un musulman en me traitant de tous les noms parce qu'il voyait que j'avais une croix sur au cou, oui. Dans les quartiers populaires où il y a une forte communauté musulmane, on ne sort pas avec sa croix.
Mais de la part du quartier à Lyon, il y a une telle pression du quartier, puisqu'on est déjà en terre à majorité musulmane, on est dans la Oumma, on est dans la communauté de croyants, c'est le ghetto dans le ghetto, et je dirais que on observe faits et gestes, on est capable de fouiller même, je dirais, dans votre caddie, etc. Il y a une telle pression que il y a certaines familles ne quittent pas la banlieue qui veut, mais il faut pouvoir quitter la banlieue, et c'est pas toujours évident.
J'ai retrouvé une famille dans l'église. Et mes meilleurs amis, voilà, aujourd'hui, c'est ceux que j'ai rencontrés et qui m'ont aidé il y a plus de 20 ans, 25 ans, qui sont encore là.
Well, I hope it gave you a fair idea of the entire issue. I'd just like to add a few comments to understand really why. How is that possible? You were held out this map today. It's in the room, countries where apostasy and blasphemy laws in Islam are applied. Of course, in Europe, Sharia does not legally apply, but these laws are a reflection of the Quran, the Sharia, the Hadiths. It's blasphemy is forbidden because within the Islamic faith. And so in Europe, the law does not enforce Sharia, but people take it and try to apply it on their own. And so as soon as a city is constituted with an important population of Muslims, they tend to impose Sharia. And we see it, I would say, nowadays, in many suburbs of the main cities in Western Europe, you have a soft application of Sharia law. That's the first thing. So it's a threat, and it's a growing threat. And I think it's important to address it this way and try to understand who's targeted. The first thing is to evaluate the number of people that are enduring this. I had real difficulties to establish a number. How many converts are there out there? How many people leave Islam for any other religion, for no religion? It's very difficult. According to the French Catholic Church, between 300 and 400 people ask for baptism with a Muslim background. For Protestant churches, I was unable to find a figure because they are divided, and so none of them has a file with in which they compile the information. But I would estimate, according to the testimonies that I have, that there are at least or about 30,000 converts from Islam in France, and so it's a significant population that endures a specific type of persecution. So I tried to summarize and range the kind of persecution that they endure on the basis of the witnesses. And I think it's important that I just read it out loud, because it's really a stage and like a step if the convert does not move away. Of course, in some cases, in France and in the UK, in some cases, really in a tiny portion of cases, the conversion is okay, but in almost, I would say, 99% of the cases, you have first contempt and verbal aggression towards the convert when announcing the conversion from the family. And then step two, he or she receives threats, act of intimidation or a harassment in order to persuade the convert to return to Islam. And this is occurring within the family or within the community, the suburb, the area, or on social networks. Then the next step is the rejection of the convert by his family. Then the physical, either an expulsion of the home, or the convert has literally to leave away, to go to another city. Then it becomes more rare, but it's very common that the convert receives threats on his physical integrity, destruction of the convert's property, ransacking of their place of living, and efforts to have them lose their jobs. I had many witnesses who experienced that the father would burn all the clothes and all his stuff at home. The father who would come on the job at the office of the convert to mess up with him and to have to make a mess. For girls, there are specific problems, and the first one is real sequestration until they return to Islam. I had direct witnesses of who experienced that the girl announces that she's leaving Islam, and she's kept at home until she comes back to Islam. She has like a period of time, a week to change her mind. And then it's more rare, but it's again common to have that the convert experiences physical violence, from spitting to beating to lynching in public with or without a knife. For girls, I also had witnesses who told me that there were forced marriages. Typically, in France, we have many people coming from North Africa, and so if a girl announces or it is revealed that she is a converted, she's sent back to Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia to marry a pious Muslim, so to say, and to have her back on track according to the family. And in some rare but it exists cases, murder or assassination. Saïd Oudjibou, whom you've heard speaking just a moment ago, had a couple of examples, and again, there is such a pressure that it's even difficult to talk about it. I started with France, but then I was able to reach out in other countries, and so in Belgium, in Austria, and in the UK, and it's more or less the same situation. As soon as there is a significant Muslim community in a city, they do persecute those living Islam. I'll finish with the how to help and how to act against this. There are two things mostly. First, the church response. You know, converts leave Islam, and Islam is more than just a religion. It's a family, it's a community. It's the ties are important. And what I was told by converts is that they it's difficult to leave Islam because they lose everything. They lose not only their faith, but their family, their job sometimes, their place of living, their friends. It's like a cutoff. And if they join a church, they hope to find some support, but it's not always the case. And in a significant number of cases, converts actually say that it was terrible because they were not understood, they were even rejected or questioned, or if they were to criticize Islam in front of Christians, some would reply by telling them that they are defaming this religion, this beautiful religion, that they shouldn't be so harsh against Islam. So this not to offend policy is very difficult for converts because they experienced Islam and the persecution that comes with it when you live it. And then there's the state response. I think there are two things that are really important and an easy message to spread. It's that when someone considers to leave Islam, he has to be cautious. He shouldn't reveal it to his family or to his friends or to anyone before he's certain that he wants to leave Islam and that he has a plan to effectively leave and to be able to save himself in case of the family reacts badly. And for girls, it may be a social shelter, a place where to sleep. This actually was the case for the Austrian Sabatina James, who wrote a book about her persecution. She revealed one day that she was no longer a Muslim, and her mother threw her out of the house, and so she could go to a social house to live for a couple of weeks. And then there is the law. So in France, it's forbidden to prevent someone to practice his religion. the law was reinforced recently, and in principle it should be easy to apply, but it's not, because the convert, when he leaves Islam, has all his family, all his community against him. And so if he launches a prosecution, or if he starts to make accusations against his family or his community, it's difficult to prove, to bring evidence to the police, and it starts a fight with the family, and it's his or her word against the family word, and so it's difficult to enact any prosecution. I'll stop here and leave the floor to the witnesses too. Thank you for your attention.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for staying up till now. Now, let me start with a harrowing story of an ex-Muslim from Pakistan. Now, I must warn you, this video might be a bit distressing. Can we play video 1, please?
I am Omar, and I was one of the fortunate individuals who had the luxury of escaping the persecution. I was tortured and gang raped just because I questioned a religion. In 2017, government of Pakistan started a crackdown against atheists and human rights activists. A friend of mine, Mashal Khan, was killed for being atheist. Another friend of mine suffered horrific torture for 21 days, and some of them, including Ayaz Nizami, are on death row waiting for death sentence in a jail in Pakistan. According to the UNHCR, over 84 million people worldwide have been forced to flee their homes. Among them are over 26 million refugees. While many are fleeing wars, some fled due to threats, physical violence, and smear campaigns because they expressed atheist views. I urge all of you to step up and play your part to save the human lives, because atheists are considered blasphemers. Helping refugees, helping humans, help humankind. The clock is ticking, and they are running out of time.
Now, nobody could have predicted how social media was going to impact our lives. The big social media companies thought that by connecting people on a global scale, they'd make lots of money. The advertising industry would be booming and online sales would go through the roof, but nobody in the early part of this century could have predicted that this flow of information, this interconnectivity, would have the potential to bring about the revolutions, to overthrow governments, to challenge the status quo, but above all, it would cause an intellectual awakening that would change our world at a pace never witnessed before in our history. Now, my country of birth, Pakistan, which is usually behind in most things progressive, is also joining the race of this intellectual awakening in the Muslim world. As some of you might know, Pakistan is a highly conservative country grappling with the highest rate of mob lynchings and arrests when it comes to blasphemy or anything remotely critical of Islam. Nearly 5 years ago, I started making videos in Urdu that were critical of Islam. This was something that had never been done by anyone or witnessed by anyone in the entire Indian subcontinent. Very quickly,
my videos started getting noticed by millions of people, and despite receiving plenty of abuse and death threats, more and more people started listening to me. And so much so that what I was actually saying, it was resonating with them. People started to leave Islam and started calling themselves ex-Muslims. Shortly afterwards, many other people started their YouTube channels, and they also started pointing out the many problems within Islam. Now, Pakistan and India are witnessing the highest rates of apostasy in the Muslim world. This is akin to the likes of the Renaissance in the West, now manifesting in its infancy within the Muslim world. It's no small feat, and the ramifications are immense for future generations. If you're wondering how is this possible, that in a deep conservative country like Pakistan, well, then you're not alone in thinking that. Pakistan still has the death penalty for blasphemy. So how can people even think about leaving Islam or questioning Islam and also keep their heads above their shoulders? How can they ensure their life is safe when the national slogan is, behead those who insult Muhammad? To put it simply, they can't. Life isn't easy for apostates of Islam in the Islamic Republic of Pakistan or even in the secular India. Apostates of Islam are killed in Muslim countries, or they must live their lives in fear, in hiding or on the run. Just this week, 2 Hindus were beheaded in India simply for showing support for an alleged blasphemer, Nupur Sharma. But that's not all. Apostates of Islam and people who support us are called bigots, racists, or Islamophobes, a term invented solely to crush any criticism of Islam as a doctrine. Islam is a doctrine, just like Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, communism, and Nazism, or any other doctrine. I'm not in any way saying that they're all the same, but they are all indeed doctrines that are not immune to scrutiny and criticism. Imagine if we gave the promulgators of these doctrines a free pass just because they added the word phobe in front of their doctrines. Imagine a communist saying, "You are a communistophobe." Oh, I better shut up and not say anything because he would be offended. Or imagine a Nazi saying in the 30s, "You are a Naziophobe." Oh, I better not hurt the feelings of this Nazi. If you're saying no, then why do you cringe when we say Islam supports child marriages? Because Prophet Muhammad was 52 when he consummated his marriage to Aisha while she was only 9. If you say, oh, nobody does that anymore, then take a look at this famous Islamic preacher right here in London at Speaker's Corner, proudly saying he would marry off his 9-year-old daughter to a 52-year-old if he could. Can you play the video too, please?
You asked me, would I allow my daughter to get married at 9? I'm saying the analogy is wrong because our teachers teach us the woman has to be sexually, mentally, and physically ready. That means if my daughter wants to menstruation, hold on, let me finish. If my daughter reached the age of menstruation at 9 years old, I would say you are ready. You are ready to get married.
Now, I'm sure all of you are thinking, that's terrible, but if you ever said that thought out loud, then you'd open yourself up to be labeled as an Islamophobe and possibly get cancelled forever or live the rest of your life in hiding, like the Baitley Grammar School teacher who simply showed a cartoon of Muhammad, and a year and a half on, he's still living in hiding. In Muslim countries, you could be easily lynched by a mob or murdered almost instantly if you said anything like that. My question to all the left-leaning liberals and even the conservatives is, do we not owe all the rights and freedoms we enjoy in the West today to the Enlightenment era? The thinkers and activists of the 15th and the 16th century who fought against the forces of religion? They beat them into submission or confined them to their churches. And yet here we are, doing exactly the same thing
in the 21st century. It's the very people who enjoy all these rights in the West that turn a blind eye to the Galileos and Michael Servetises and Giordano Brunos of the Muslim world. Apostates of Islam are dying in the name of blasphemy and apostasy all the time in Muslim countries. And if they happen to be one of the lucky ones, they're running for their lives. Just have a listen to some of them. Can you play video 3, please?
Hello everyone, this is Omar. Many of you know me as ex-Muslim Spartacus. I am an apostate, and my life was tossed upside down because of narcissism of Muhammad and blasphemy laws. There is a hadith in Sahih Muslim and Bukhari where Muhammad says, "None of you have faith until I am more beloved to him than his children, his father, and all of the people." When my mother found out that I am no longer Muslim, she acted upon this hadith and obtained a fatwa for my killing. And since then, I am on the run for my life. It's been almost 10 years now. Government of Pakistan started a crackdown against atheists in 2017. A High Court judge ruled that blasphemers are terrorists. I was among the lucky ones who escaped Pakistan, but many got caught and are in solitary confinement even till today.
This is Kamal. I am a Pakistani blogger and YouTuber. I have been blogging for at least now 9 to 10 years. I had to leave Pakistan in 2017 when Pakistani authorities started a crackdown on bloggers, and some of my friends were illegally abducted, some were arrested, and some are still on death row charged for blasphemy. So I was lucky enough to find out in time that the crackdown had started and I left Pakistan. But my life was toppled. I was working in Pakistan, earning handsomely and doing everything. But my life was turned upside down when I had to leave Pakistan in a rush. And I'm still living in exile, but still struggling on. So since I came out of Pakistan, I started a YouTube channel and I have been running it. And I have a significant following in Pakistan right now. And I am trying to influence people to come out of the dogmatic ignorance that is dominant in Pakistan. So there are many other people who are leaving religion in Pakistan, who are leaving Islam behind, who are leaving other religions behind, and all of them are vulnerable. Because apostasy is a serious crime in Pakistan, and apostates can be booked for blasphemy. Blasphemy law is a black law in Pakistan that has hurt a lot of lives. A lot of lives have been lost because of it. And the environment is so charged right now that mob lynchings are norm. So this is what I had to say. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ayla and I'm an ex-Muslim from Pakistan. Today I want to address few issues and problems we face as an ex-Muslim in Muslim majority countries, particularly Islamic countries like Pakistan, Iran and everything. The first problem I have is that our family segregate us. Like the day when you come out as an ex-Muslim or a free thinker, they just toss you out of the house.
Hello everyone, Pakistani ex-Muslim atheist here. I leave Islam in 2019. After leaving Islam, I feel insecure to live in Pakistan because of apostasy by extremist Muslims.
Sorry about the poor quality. It would be uploaded separately. This is not even the proverbial tip of the iceberg. Now, countries like Pakistan that have blasphemy laws are full members of the United Nations. Article 18 of the UN National Declaration of Human Rights states that everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. then how can we have such double standards on human rights? Why does Pakistan and about 13 other countries with blasphemy laws, they still have a seat on the UN's Human Rights Council? Why do we not pressure these countries to update their moral standards from the 7th century to the 21st century? We need to make them acknowledge that freedom from religion is just as important as freedom to practice religion. And if we can't do that, then at the very least we must recognize the very real threats to their lives. Their struggle must be given due consideration, and their applications to seek protection in the West must not fall on deaf ears. Where ex-Muslims are fleeing from a country that could legally put them to death for a thought, we should not think twice about turning these people away, but rather expedite cases such as these. It's our moral duty as a society to ensure that every ex-Muslim's right to life and liberty as guaranteed under Article 2 of the Human Rights Act. So that's the situation in some of those far-flung conservative Islamic countries. Let's come a little bit closer to home, shall we? Here in the UK, a country where we think we have the right to enjoy freedom of speech as well as freedom of and from religion. But take a look at this. Let me show you another clip of the same Islamic preacher I showed you earlier for you all to see how they openly and proudly dog whistle and preach capital punishment for apostates like myself and many others in this room. Can you play video 4, please?
This is a part of our religion. There's a reason to it. Yeah? There's a reason why there's a capital punishment. Because people like you, little weaklings, who leave their religion and cause corruption in the land by spreading it, the capital punishment in Islamic law would be applied to you. We have no doubt. And we're proud of that. Yeah? Capital punish will be applied in an Islamic state.
Yeah, he's a clown. Now, I genuinely believe. By the way, YouTube actually still refuses to take this video down and sees nothing wrong in prescribing capital punishment for apostates. People like Ali Dawah and so many others in the UK cleverly use words like, in an Islamic state. Needless to say, you've heard from the horse's mouth that they are proud to see us executed. But funnily enough, they also avoid any legal repercussions for that kind of rhetoric, simply because he didn't go the full mile and say apostates should be killed here in the UK. This is nothing but a clever use of words, and they know it. In reality, it's just dog whistling. They know when they make statements like these, some awe-inspired fanatical Islamist or even an emotionally charged up nominal Muslim is likely going to take matters into his own hands and kill another Samuel Paty or Mashal Khan or Kanai Alal just a couple of days ago. Let me show you the impact of these statements in the real world. I'm not even playing any of the death threats I get from Pakistan or even some European countries. These are literally British men born and bred or settled in England. Once again, I must warn you, this language is very crude and could be distressful. Can you play the last video, please?
दोस्तों ये उस सज़ा ਨੂੰ ਕੁਆਲੀਫਾਈ ਕਰ ਚੁੱਕਿਆ ਹੈਗਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਮੁਰਤਦ ਔਰ ਨਬੀ ਪਾਕ ਸੱਲਮ ਦੀ ਸ਼ਾਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੁਸਤਾਖੀ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਦੀ ਹੋਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਣ ਦੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਐਜ਼ ਅ ਮੁਸਲਮ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਇਹ ਕਾਫਰ ਕਿਰਦਾਰ ਤੱਕ ਪਹੁੰਚਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਇਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ 'ਚ ਕੋਈ ਡਿਟੇਲ ਹੋਏ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰੋ ਦੋਸਤੋ ਇਹ ਕਿਤੇ ਨਾ ਕਿਤੇ ਕੰਮ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੋਣਾ ਕਿਤੇ ਨਾ ਕਿਤੇ ਸ਼ਾਪਿੰਗ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੋਣਾ ਕਿਤੇ ਨਾ ਕਿਤੇ ਇਹ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੋਣਾ तो ये नजर रखो सही है अगर कितने भी मिले अगर आप ही स्वाब हासिल करना चाहते हो तो ताड़ी मर्जी नहीं तो बहुत ज्यादा आज के रसूल आस्ट्रेलिया में भी मौजूद है ने उन्होंने मौका दियो जन्नत कमान दा
रंडी दे बच्चे आ भैन चोद आ गांडू इस्लाम के बारे में बुरी बुरी गल्लां कर रहा तेरी मां ने मक्को सा मारा फूदी होंदे भैन लन गंदी शक्ल वाला भैन चोद कुड़ी हवा तेरी मां ने सही फूदी मासा Dung, dung, dung. Bang, chod. Fucking bastard. fucking talk anything about ill about Islam, I will rip your fucking face. Just that khuda teri gandi shakal is gonna make it apart. He's gonna make it fucking dirty. Teri shakal vek. Bandara di shakal teri aur bandar ban jaise panch. Dar, तुम्हारी मुंह से ना इतनी बदवाएं लेंगे ने तुम्हारे मुंह से which watch what the consequences bro. तुम इस्लाम के बारे में ना ऐसे बातें कर रहे हो ना तुम्हारा नजाम ऐसे बहुत बुरे होने वाला है ठीक है जब तुम्हारी मौत होगी ना फिर मैं देखूंगा.
That's just a little trailer of what I get on pretty much daily basis, but and these guys, the police can't do anything about it. Now, I genuinely believe that one day my life could be cut short at the hands of an extreme lover of the Prophet, and even then, all that would be said after that would be the usual common rhetoric that, oh, Islam is a religion of peace. There is no violence in Islam. But I think everyone now understands how Islam is different when it comes to silencing its critics, how totalitarian it is in its very nature. But almost everyone is afraid to talk about it. If it's not the fear for your actual life, then it's the fear of being labeled a racist or an Islamophobe. But how do we get here? A country that produced people like John Milton and concepts like Areopagitica, the liberty to know, to utter, and to argue freely, according to conscience, above all liberties. Yet here we are some 400 years later, since Milton uttered those exact words that ensured our freedom to speak against religions. But have we taken them for granted? Why are we losing these freedoms that we had won over 400 years ago? Why are we finding ourselves in the same medieval mess that Milton had rebelled against? To all the respected individuals amongst us here today, I humbly and sincerely ask you to join me in standing up against religious intimidation, mostly Islam. They're very nice Christian people here, so don't take that personally. And giving a free pass to Islamists who call for violence all in the name of multiculturalism. Calling out violent practices coming from a foreign culture is not racism. If we had a culture that sacrificed their firstborn so that they could have many more children, would we have allowed that in the name of respecting other cultures? Then why in 2022 do we allow the practice of male circumcision, or more appropriately, genital mutilation? Why is our police helpless in arresting individuals that I just showed you, who are sitting comfortably in Britain in preaching death for apostates elsewhere? Why does it take the ending of a life for the police to even begin to take these threats seriously? Something has to change. The Muslim world is ready for her own enlightenment period, and we eagerly look to our allies in the West as we embark on this journey. But unfortunately, they seem uninterested in helping those whose hearts are yearning for liberty. However, I am an optimistic person. I do hope that conversations like these will change, will bring a better tomorrow. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, so I've just been given instruction there by my dear friend Neil. So allow me to give yourselves a quick introduction. So my name is Nissar Hussain. So I'm an ex-Muslim. I'm born and raised in a Pakistani family. I would be classed as a first-generation immigrant born to Pakistani parents in '65. So I've been around a little while. And anyway, so we will run this film, and then hopefully I can just then talk you through. Thank you.
police cars arrive in convoy on an unremarkable street in the Manningham area of Bradford. The second vehicle is Nissar Hussain's.
Well, the armed police have just emerged from Nissar Hussain's house. We understand, ostensibly, they've checked whether it's safe for him and his family to go back in. These are extraordinary scenes on a suburban street in broad daylight in Bradford.
I never thought I'd see the living day, as I said earlier, born and raised in this country, that it would come to a point in my life, in almost 20 years, my family and I will be subjected to what we now know as apostasy, for no other reason but to embrace Christianity and leave Islam. I really don't need David Cameron to tell me multiculturalism has failed and Mother Merkel. I can tell you from experience, and my daughter has joined me, and we can tell you all they've ever known since they've been knee high is this type of subjugation. Literally, this is not even a snippet. And the police have been complicit. Government has failed. The number one priority of any government is to protect its citizens. I can tell you that they have signed my death warrant, and I live, along with my family, as internally displaced people in a country where I've been born and raised, because I foolishly believed in British values, our freedoms and democracy. And I can tell you, standing here, for us as a family and ex-Muslims, and many should have been here today, some were particularly nervous, kept asking me about protection, and I said, listen, it's under control, it'll be well, it's okay. And none of them have turned up, actually. They're living in abject fear. And I want to say sorry to my daughter, because my son actually last year said to me, Dad, was it worth it? Failure of the church, right up to Justin Welby. 4 bishops failed us in Bradford. Why? Fear. Interfaith. We've been sacrificed on the altar of Muslim dialogue. Interfaith is good. But where is our freedoms, or where is our protection? And I can tell you, to their shame, that they turned their backs on us. As I said, Justin Welby himself, actually, it's been a failure of the state. Been meaning to write a book, actually, but you appreciate coming from this mess, trying to protect your family as a husband, as a father, that I tried everything in my capacity to go about my business. I didn't preach it, I didn't teach it, I was just going about our British way of life. But of course, we are murtad, we are apostates, and so we were then subjected to Sharia law. I want to read a statement if I can, actually, if you permit me. Whoever changes his religion, kill him. This is a quote from the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, in the Hadith, Sahih, Al-Bukhari 957. And this is also in our mission statement, alongside Neil. We've tried to tackle the genocidal threat of Sharia in this country. And I wasn't particularly impressed by this, was it the International Religious Freedom yesterday? Because I know the failures. I was as desperate as desperate could be. And every day was survival. It escalates, as Sultan has said and a few people have said earlier, to this verbal hatred, this contempt, this instant contempt where 1 minute it's all, hello brother, a brother from a different mother, assalamu alaikum, and the next moment, one of my closest friends, when I shared with him that I'd given up on Islam, and he turned on me actually and said, don't you ever come to my house again. But it doesn't stop there. You really wouldn't mind if they just went about their business and just left you as civilized people would do. But then it goes out like wildfire. You don't know them, but all of a sudden they know you. You could be walking on the street with children, wife, shopping, and you are labeled as the kuffars and kafirs under the sun, unbeliever, infidel. What gives these people the right in such lawless fashion with impunity to say and do and escalate this from verbal assaults to confrontations, car torchings, drive-by brickings, where my kids couldn't sit next to the bay window because we didn't know where the next brick was going to come flying from. For 4 years, I fought it and I fought it because, again, foolishly, I believed in British law and order, the police system. But no, they turned a blind eye to it all. And you couldn't understand what was going on here. But then you realize this is a two-tier law system. Yes, I can understand there was discrimination at one point. I even suffered a bit of discrimination myself growing up in this country. But it's absolutely nothing. It doesn't compare to the daily bombardment where your own house is not a refuge and the children, the family are clinically depressed. You're trying to protect your family, you're trying to hold down a job. Every movement is monitored. You step out the house, they're there. Actually, and all the abuse comes, you know, Jew dog, much, much worse actually. And as this Sultan demonstrated with some of the appalling verbal abuse, following my wife and my children, going to the school run along the road. And I must pay homage to my wife and children actually. But it's come at a grave cost because we're all suffering, even now, we're suffering the trauma after being escorted out by armed police. This was a year almost to the day after my attack, actually. But if I can just digress and just, I think our friend, Mr. Youssef al-Qaradawi, leading Sunni theologian and presenter of Al Jazeera, of the popular Sharia and Life program, he quotes this: if they, Muslims, had gotten rid of the punishment of death for apostasy, Islam would not exist today. And so, what is the government doing? I can tell you, I have absolutely no confidence whatsoever. I've approached Lord Alton yesterday. I really respect the work that they do. I'm sure they do wonderful works. He mentioned another wonderful advocate, Caroline Cox. I appealed to this lady 1 year before my brutal attack. If it wasn't for my Polish neighbors who happened to just be outside at that moment, several doors up the road from where I lived, I really don't think I'd be here with you now. The police opened and shut the case without me even knowing about it. And they called it an assault. This was attempted murder. I was kneecapped, and I suffered a broken hand trying to protect my head from being bludgeoned in, and they called it an assault. And so the colluding and corrupt Bradford police actually left us to the wolves, and 11 days I spent in hospital, no police protection for my family. 2 of my daughters came back from university. I was on the operating table just before, and I was allowed to make a phone call, and I begged them. I said, please, please, don't come back. They're going to patch me up. I'll be okay. Look, I'm incapacitated. I can't protect you. And daughters being daughters, 2 of the girls came back from university. Could you imagine how I felt on that hospital bed, walking along, coming outside of our home, walking, making their way over to the hospital daily? And so this is the kind of Britain that exists for those of us who do nothing more but to reject Islam. There is a serious problem with Islam, and as my great friend, and I really admire Sam Solomon, was speaking earlier today, I'll never forget some years ago when he said it's not Muslims per se, but it's the ideology. And so here I am actually, despite all the consequences, despite the fact we are now internally displaced people having to be led away by armed police, 4 armed vehicles in a SWAT-style operation. It's something that was just so surreal that even now, it doesn't seem to sink in. And so they've got me out of there, and I'm wondering now, yes, there was always that threat to life, but I feel it was staged to get me and my family out of my home, because we mustn't upset the Muslim community. It was the same for the mass English girls that were raped over a 20-year period by predominantly Pakistani perpetrators. Mustn't upset them. We mustn't be insensitive. So they've created this 2-tier law system where no matter what they say and do and what threat they pose, they have to be protected at all costs. This is fundamentally wrong. It is against our British principles, our British freedoms. One only has to look fairly recently, the Batley teacher who was given an RE lesson, and he just happened to share a picture of the Prophet of Islam. And the Gujarati community was screaming for his murder in front of the police outside the school gates. And nothing was done. They weren't contained. There were no arrests. And this poor man consequently had to leave his home, similar to ourselves, under police protection like ourselves to this day. And, you know, how has this been allowed to happen? There isn't a day I don't ask myself, why has this been allowed? How is this happening? And so this is the situation for us as a family. And so we go on, we press on, and one of our mottos, or the main motto for the Legalize Apostasy campaign. Please join us, www.Legalize Apostasy campaign. And Brother Kamal, I forgot to say thank you to you, sir, for giving me the invite and allowing me to be part of the Set My People Free. Because I have a great passion for our ex-Muslim brothers and sisters in Pakistan, be it Christian, religious, or non-religious, it doesn't really matter to me, but because I know their lives are in jeopardy, their lives are in danger, but somehow that doesn't seem to resonate with our government. So we are defending Western civilization by upholding freedom of conscience, and we want to see the Sharia reformed. I struggle so much, and I say, where to go, what to do. My own son said to me just last year, he said, Daddy, couldn't you have handled it differently? They look back from their childhood. And I said, please, don't be too hard on me, because, you've got to understand the heart and mind of Islam and apostasy. And nothing prepared me for this. Look, I went to a mosque dutifully 2 hours every day after school. I loathed it, but I went. One is never taught the Sharia. I never expected this. I believed in this country. But it's upon us now, and what do we do? But so I genuinely do fear. I fear for my children. I really do. I fear for this country. Because if something is not done soon, we're all in jeopardy. So I just wanted to, I won't be too long actually. The apostasy law is not recognized by the police. It states in the hate crime legislation, I'm led to believe. However, no matter how many times over 20 years I expressed to the police, this is apostasy hatred, I forget the times I've been arrested, I've been dragged away. It is no different to Pakistan and the apostasy scenario there and what minorities face. False allegations, numerous times. I've been attacked so many times, but it's been turned around because of mob pressure. It literally has been like being in Pakistan or the Middle East or some Islamic country. It's just been surreal. And so they've never, ever, the police in Bradford have never exercised the apostasy law and what we've gone through as a family. As I've mentioned, the church failure. And I was asked to speak back in 2008. Now, I'm just a family man, I go to work, I was doing nursing at the time, I'd come home, I was just a happy-go-lucky family guy. And then actually, all hell broke loose, and we were forced out of our first home back in 2006. And we were all clinically depressed. We've been on the front line in the trenches, and we go about now rebuilding our lives. And then CSW, Christian Solidarity Worldwide, contacted me and said, we are raising this type of issue, apostasy, blasphemy, the world over, but we want to do a case study for the UK. Do we have your permission to come over? I said, so please come along. So we had a chat. They got us, they produced a booklet, which I wanted to show you, but I left it behind in Parliament, and I hope somebody is having a good read of that. And actually, so then I was asked to come and speak in Parliament. And I addressed Lord Alton with this booklet. It was called No Place to Call Home. What a poignant reminder. I could never have envisaged that come 14 years later, I would be in this spot. So this booklet produced by CSW, No Place to Call Home. So I said, sir, you have a young man, and I'm pointing to John Ghanib there, and I said, I was like that young man on a panel, actually in Parliament. My knees were knocking all the way from Bradford. I traveled to Parliament, and because of my belief and trust in our democracy, you know, I spoke. There were decision makers, lawmakers. I didn't see myself as a speaker, but I believed and I spoke. Can you tell me what's happened in 14 years? What have you done? This is a talking shop. And God bless the man, he couldn't wait to get away from me fast enough. So something decisively now needs to happen. And we really need to educate this community because it doesn't have Article 18 or 19 as part of their vocabulary. They are second generation Muslims now who are shutting down free speech, free debate. Cineworld was a more recent, if I may. So you had in Bradford the old, the retired, the pensioners, second generation, who in a mob fashion was shouting outside Cineworld, "This is blasphemous, this is blasphemous." We know it's not blasphemy at all. The film was produced by a Shiite believer, a film producer. The whole of Cineworld UK shut the film down. Could you imagine if that was a right-wing group? You know, if the police couldn't contain that situation, they would have drafted the army in and everyone would have been arrested. So this is the extent of where we are. Actually, so I just really want to close and say that, so thank you for hearing me, and please do continue to consider apostasy, blasphemy. I've nowhere to turn, actually. MPs have failed us. My MP, who's part of in the cabinet, can't get an appointment, can't get past a PA. My reputation seems to exceed me. So, but we live in hope. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you guys. We are coming to a close very soon. I would like to hear from Harry. Harry, please, would you come and speak to us?
Can you hear me? Is that okay? Great, thank you so much. Beautiful. Right. Hi. My name is I don't know how I follow that, so thank you and wish me luck. My name's Harry Parekh. I'm a trainee clinical psychologist at the University of Liverpool. And right, I've got 12 minutes-ish. So, I left Hinduism back in 2013, and I had a really easy time. Mum and Dad were fine, community, heck, I went to a family gathering not so long after, and I had uncles and aunties coming up to me individually going, I saw you on TV, well done, keep going, it makes a lot of sense, well done. And you know, that was really refreshing. What was interesting, though, is that when I became quite involved in the student humanist movement and did various things like that, and I met with people there, I realized that actually I had an easy ride, and a lot of people aren't this lucky. I was doing a master's at the time, and one of the questions my supervisor kept asking is, well, what are you going to do for your thesis? And I was like, well, here we go. I didn't know that people had such a rough time. So I utilized the power I had to say, okay, let's see what's out there. There was no academic evidence out there in relation to apostasy or the abuse of apostates. And I think that's really concerning because as we've heard today, from even just these three guys here and throughout the day today, there's anecdotal evidence to your heart's content of people having a really rough time when it comes to apostasy, when it comes to apostasy from X religion to another, or whether it's just leaving a religious faith in itself. So the academic community are null when it comes to this. So that's where this comes in. I'm going to have to do a Chris Whitty and say, next slide, please. It's not working. Could you go to the next slide, please? Keep going. Keep going. Okay, so I'm going to be really quick because I know I don't have long. But one of the ways, okay, right. One of the ways that we understand religion, or when we look at it from an academic perspective, is going, well, what does it give to people? And we have to really figure out that one of the concerns when it comes to religion is people tackle it with rationality and go, well, why are you doing this? What's the reasons for it? And you can have a rational argument with somebody about what the thing is. But the problem is, and one thing that people always forget, it's not a rational issue, it's an emotional one. There's a notion of identity, there's a notion, I think it's on a timer. Could you go back, please, 2 slides? There's a notion of identity, there's a notion of identity, there's a notion of emotionality, there's a sense of safety, security, and support. And religion, or any ideology that you take, provides that in bountifuls so that you feel good, you feel secure, you feel that in a time of need, when you're in threat, when you need to protect yourself, there's things around that's going to help that. And that's one of the reasons, amongst many, why these things exist. Next slide, please. And that's part of your sense, or the person's sense of identity and what constitutes them to become who they are. It's part of their identity. It's religion, tradition, and culture, the 3 tripartites of why this matters on an emotional level to the person. And that's the one thing that we always forget. So it's not the notion of getting rid of this, or it's not the notion of, banishing it forever, or we'd be better off without it, or anything like that. It's going, well, actually, it's human. We need it. We are it. Well, what do we do then? Next slide, please. Beautiful. And this is where we come to the interesting part of what happens when that safety and that security bubble isn't so safe, isn't so secure, isn't so supportive. Next slide, please. And I think this is where the experiences that have been spoken about today, one thing that you'll probably get from these slides today is all the things you've heard today should neatly slit into everything I say here. But here's where we come to what apostasy is, and it's a disaffiliation that's moving away. And I usually lighten the mood a little bit by talking about the Lion King and saying that moment where Mufasa, spoiler alert, that moment where Mufasa dies, because Scar obviously kills him, but that moment where Scar then blames Simba, and then Simba is then disaffiliated from the pride and runs away and is in the desert for how many years or whatever. Very similar argument, because you're shunned away from your family and you're basically alone. We recently did a bit of research last year with a colleague at the Open University on apostasy and homelessness. I need to write the data up. But what we found is if you leave a religious faith, or if you join another one, your initial community are then more likely to kick you out, not be with you anymore, shun you, and etc. You're technically homeless. However, the government or policies, procedures, they don't understand what that means because it's not known. Well, what is an apostate? Well, what is leaving religion? Or why can't you just go back home? And what we actually found in ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, ex-Mormons, even ex-Muslims, ex-Christians, that they would actually argue for them to go back home. So we're sending them back to an abusive relationship. But we'll do that soon. Anyways, leaving a religious faith isn't just as easy as going, I don't believe anymore, or going, I prefer this other religion. Actually, what it is, it's an emotional attachment and an emotional relationship from one to another. And any relationships, if you've been through a breakup, you know how hard it is, because every breakup brings in similar sets of emotions and feelings and stuff like that. And that process gets even more exaggerated when we bring in, brings in communities, brings in all the other bits that come on. Next slide. What time are we on? We are good. Yep, keep going. Next one. Okay. Just as a frame of reference, when we look at apostasy and then we look at blasphemy, the way that it's persecuted and the way that it's looked at is obviously concerning, and enough people have said that today. There's a concern, however, that it affects the religious, because it's the religious that are asking questions that are then deemed inappropriate. So it's a law that actually affects that person from exploring their religion in detail because it's deemed as inappropriate or it's deemed as offensive. So it affects those people. And part of my doctorate thesis at the moment is looking at creating a grounded theory analysis between looking at blasphemy or being labeled as a blasphemer and the notion of identity, because again, it doesn't exist out there. How do we understand those processes, those concepts, those transitions, and how does that then affect the person is something that I'll be looking at soon. Next slide. Thank you. So why is it a concern? So pointing towards an open access article, you can Google it, it's free to read. Kind of long. But it's basically, next slide please. It's basically the first study into worldwide abuses of apostates within religious households. We had 228 people carry out the study from 30 different countries. 30 people are actually from the UK that filled this out. So, and the countries are widespread anyway. One thing that we did find is the first thing is there is the trend that we all know that people are becoming less religious. We actually now, I say, data to show that there was an increase in 1,033% of people becoming more non-religious than before. And we looked at Christians and Muslims. What's important about this is pay attention to the 130 and the 68, which means that we had more people from a Christian perspective complete this survey than we did Muslim. And that's really important on the next slide. Right, the reason why that's really important is because despite having a lesser number of people from a Muslim family or birth family complete the survey, they were so much more highly statistically significant for being victims of assault, serious assault, and psychological abuse for leaving their religious faith. So there is a concern here and there is a trend here, and we were able to kind of categorize that into the notions of assault and say, well, hang on a minute, what's going on in these communities? To be fair, for balance, Christian population wasn't that great, just not as significant, okay? One of the things that was insignificant was this notion of negotiation. I kind of hypothesized that it's the argument of going, parents or families don't know what to do as a result of their child or their family member or whatever changing or transitioning or leaving or whatever, and there's an argument of going, they become stuck and they don't know how to react and they go for what they've learned, which we've heard from Nissar quite eloquently earlier, and they resort to what they know. Next slide, please. And one of the things that we also did is we go, well, actually, if you're a victim of abuse in all these different realms, so things from assault, which is just common assault, to serious assault where you're actually going to die, and psychological abuse, what about the police? What about law enforcement? And one of the things that's concerning is that, well, if you're in a nation state where you as an apostate or you as a blasphemer are the offender for being that, then you don't even have the law to support you either. So what we then found is that many people basically reported their assaults to the police. Next slide. That many people believe it would be disrespectful to report their crime. Next slide, please. And this many people believe that the police would not really be able to help them. Next slide, please. Oh, yeah, that is. And then this lot of victims basically believe that even if they did report it, there'd be repercussions from family if they were to report it, which I think we saw that earlier today by Nissar. Next slide, please. Right, and the concern is that before, I used to argue, well, the police need to do a better job, and politics and policies and procedures need to do better and step up and do better. Okay, I've got 3 minutes here. The concern, however, is that when you're looking at a community or a group of people that are insular in nature, where the police don't have eyes on it, nor law enforcement have eyes on it, or, you know, Hasidic Jewish people, communities are probably another example of that. How can law enforcement ever bridge that if they don't even have eyes on it? And there are so many communities in the UK, heck, let's not go worldwide, but just in the UK, there are so many communities that are so insular in nature that they won't even allow an external person in. Well, how do you expect the police to then do their job? The other thing is that what we also seen in the study is that when we have people that have come from outside in, so first generational immigrants, they hold on to their sense of culture, tradition, and values and everything else ever so much more strongly than the people that might already be here. So you then get an even more exaggerated reaction or persecution from people in that regards. Next slide. Oh yeah, that's fine. So one of the concerns is, how do we then impress change? I've got to be quick now. The biggest issue here is that we always look at the proximal, we always look at the people. What we need to do is go a step further and look at, well, actually culture, traditions, and things around it. Next slide, please. Apostates don't have any power because they lose everything when they leave their safety net and their support bubble. Therefore, it's the role of society or policy, procedure, politics, culture, everything else under the sun to be able to go, well, how do we support somebody this vulnerable? When somebody has no power, the state and more need to step up. At the moment, nobody knows these people even exist, so why would they? And Nissar's examples were so poignant, or even your examples were poignant, because actually, if they don't know they exist, they don't know then what to do. And they then just go by what they think is right rather than what is right. Next slide, please. If only it was as simple as waving a magic wand to increase acceptance. Next slide. One of the concerns from anthropology, so if you look at Bateson's work, is the notion of social groups. Actually, these are the concerns that relate to apostates. When you're looking at difference within groups, I've got 1 minute. When you're looking at differences within groups, the question is, well, how does the more powerful group accept the ones that are in the minority, right? So if you're in a majority and you've got more power, what about the minority and how do you accept them? Well, the concern is that it happens in 3 ways. Either you fuse it, either you eliminate one of them or both of them, or there's an equilibrium where they continue, but there's one that's major. The thing is, someone's got to give. There's got to be room for someone to say, you know what, live. At the moment, that's not happening. Next slide. These are all the normal things that people will think of. I know, I'll be 2 seconds. These are all the normal things that you think of when we think, well, how do we reform, what do we do? The concern is it goes further than that because it goes into communitarian work. And it comes into the acceptance of difference and a perspective that difference is okay. We're challenging, I think we said it before earlier today, we're challenging deep-seated, hard, old-school, traditional, concerted values of what is okay. That will never be easy to do. Next slide. Before he became a bit weird, he said something really cool. Next slide. That's a wrap.
Great, thank you very, very much. I think we owe a big applaud to all our speakers, those who have been from the morning with us and all this day, long day. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for your bravery and your sharing your heart and your knowledge and your expertise. Please, would we all stand and just give them a big, big hand? Big, big hand. Thank you all. I'm just going to summarize a few recommendations, and then I will ask Kamal to, just for 2 minutes, to give us a final word before we close in prayer and head home. Please, this is not the end of the conversation, but I pray that we'll take the conversation home and in our own platform. And this is the recommendation that I've been listening throughout the day. In 4 small sentences, let me summarize them for you. Number 1, let us listen to people. It's a time to listen. We need to listen more to know more about the story. And as we listen, we get to understand where people are at. Our brother Harry was saying, the people don't exist, but they do exist. But we need to listen to them. Secondly, we need to share with others about the suffering. It's very important that this story be shared across the board in every well, in every connection you have, relationship you have, please share the story and their suffering. Thirdly, we need to speak to those who have authority. It's our time to challenge those MPs, those local authority, whatever you can. And I always call them a divine appointment. Sometimes you like to meet an MP, you can't. But God will provide the right time where you will be next to an MP and then you can raise these issues and challenge them. Lastly, pray and support in any way you can. And I pray that prayer will be at the center of what we do, that we'll continue to pray, but also be an answer of your prayer. And whatever practical way that you can help, please help and support. Thank you once again. And please give a big hand to all those who have attended here, please. Thank you very much. Thank you again. And finally, I would like personally, although he gave me a hard time, but I would like to thank Kamal, who have the heart. You know, this subject is not an easy subject. Another cup of tea of, not many of us have that heart for this issue. It's a very tough issue. But we thank God for Kamal that put this in his heart, for the sacrifice that him and his family do in order to bring this to light. We are all just supporters. I'm not part of the organizations. This is my first time even to share with them, but we pray for them a lot. But we are really grateful for people like Kamal, like his family, who God has put in their heart really to see people are free to worship God and not to suffer all the suffering. So big hand for Kamal as he come and give us the final word. Kamal.
Actually, I want to thank all of you, the ones who have helped to make this possible. It is not work of one person. Actually, many people got involved. The speakers, the ones who organized, who contacted the speakers, and also the place here which hosted us to have the program. People has helped back in Sweden to get the exhibition stuff. A lot of printing was done. We prepared a lot of things for the exhibition, which we were not able to get here. But even the program took a lot of effort from people who were working behind the scene in Set My People Free, Jubilee campaign, and many other organizations. On the back of the program, you see the different groups who have helped to make this possible. I mean, we have not been able to put all, but all these people have helped to make this occasion possible. And I think since in some ways God has put this in my heart, when I met this family in Yemen, which was not able to live as Christians, in spite they are 3-generation Christians, I felt this is something which is not fitting with the time we are living in. And that we need to see freedom for the individual to choose. And the basic for this is actually God has created us free. He has not created us robots. And he wanted us to be free to love him. And he gave us the choice to choose the way. And we are responsible for what he gave us. And he created us in his image. And freedom is very crucial for the individual. It is like the oxygen you breathe. You cannot live at all not free. You have to realize one of the most important facts for the individual is that we are free individuals. We are human beings. He created us in his image. He gave us the opportunity to choose. But he is the creator, and he has the instruction book of the best way, but he will not force us. And he wants you to choose how you want to go with your life. And I think we have to protect this freedom. It is the basis for democracy, for the basis for harmony, the basis for acceptance of one another. And of course, with freedom, you cannot be free to drive when the traffic light is red. So there is restriction in that sense. And this, we can find it in the human right, the Declaration of Human Rights, which really basically had given us a way forward to live together. And I think one of the most important is 18 and 19. Because when there is only one narrative, dictatorship flourish, and you have the problem with what come out. But this justice, equality, and freedom, they go together. And so when I saw this and saw the horrible things people go through when they leave Islam, this made me, this thing should stop. You cannot kill somebody for the way he decides to live. And so 1.3 billion face this problem. And I think for us, what made the West develop is freedom of expression. And today, we have an attack on freedom of expression and freedom of opinion. And we have to protect it. It is very basic for justice, for evaluation, for accountability. And so we need to protect that. And I think apostasy and blasphemy law, they shock this right. And this is why we are standing for it. This is why we want it to go away. Because when these two articles are not practiced, then we will go into tyranny. And we cannot live all in one narrative. And actually, it is basic. I mean, I myself, I'm a Christian, and I know God has given the individual the freedom. Because even Jesus said, if you want to go to hell, go to hell. The road is wide, and many people are going into that direction. And going to paradise is not compulsory. So, but we need to find how we can live together. And we have very clearly some basic things. And this is equality and justice for everyone. And I think the Western law is built on the freedom of the individual, not a group. And I think this was mentioned today in many of the speeches. And so I think it is very basic for us to go forward is to protect these basic rights. And we should include then you can receive information and communicate information. So I just want to encourage you not to give up. Imagine if Wilberforce gave up to ending slave trade. Imagine if Nelson Mandela stopped working for ending apartheid. Or think of Martin Luther King not finishing his work to end segregation in the US. And many others who went forward to protect the dignity of man and the freedom of the individual. And so we have a responsibility to stand to see apostasy and blasphemy law abolished. It is a challenge for the freedom and for democracy and for the equality and for the justice. And so what should we do? I think we have to create awareness of the violation of these laws. We need to work together. We need all of us to stand to protect the freedom of the individual, to see these laws abolished. We need to do what they did when they decided to stop, I couldn't get the word in English, but embargo the countries which violate these basic laws, to put pressure on them that there will be justice, equality, and freedom for the individual in these countries. And then we have to push this into the international platforms. If it is the UN, the Human Rights Council, the European Union, the African Union, the Arab League, wherever, we should try to push to see this done. And I think each one of us can play part in this, and we can influence our political representative in our government and in our countries. But it has to be a network of people working together. So thank you for standing for the suffering people. And you can see as you go through these pictures there and photos of many people who have suffered. And this should motivate us to work, to alleviate, to take away the suffering they go through because of these two laws. Thank you again, and may God help us all to see this task accomplished of maintaining these two articles, 18 and 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And I would like to end just with the statement that Bonhoeffer said. And it is actually what he said is that he said, we are not to simply bandage the wounds of victims beneath the wheels of injustice. We are to drive a spoke into the wheel itself. That Bonhoeffer. And it is actually prevention is better than cure.